What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I'm going to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's going on with the markets thus far and what you should be watching for as time progresses. Why tomorrow is going to be a very important day as we have a lot of options expiring, what the data is suggesting, and also what's going on with the news affecting Tesla. But before I break anything down all this information, before I talk about what's going on with Tesla and all these different tickers, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 6 free stocks. If you deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 free stocks plus 6 months of level 2 data. And putting in $25,000 or more guarantees you 70 free stocks plus 12 months of level 2 data. The offer ends in just about 4 days from now, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market and Tesla. Looking at Tesla, we got a very, very nice break out of this falling wedge right here, and we saw Tesla just continue to push up. We ended up reaching this resistance level right over here around this 252 area, and Tesla does have potential to try to break out to even higher levels, but we have to watch and see how it reacts to this resistance and what the reaction is for the market after some more data comes out. Now, tomorrow is going to be a very important day. I'm going to break down exactly why that is in just a few. But first, let's just look at this. So I just want to mention that SPY has millions and millions of options expiring for tomorrow. We have just over 2 million calls expiring, and we have over 4.8 million puts expiring with a 2.37 puts to call ratio. Max pain's at 446. But I just want to mention that with all these puts expiring, the market makers could try to squeeze shorts again. This little pullback that we saw could just be them grabbing some liquidity to cause the market to push up higher. So we're going to be watching this just to be safe. Now, I just want to mention that when it comes to the way that the market moves, we're going to be watching all of these different positions, at least moving forward, and also looking to see how max pain is adjusted. But for now, it's very clear and very evident to me that with all these option expirations, we're going to see some high volatility for tomorrow, and I'll be breaking down where on earth this could cause the moves. Now, as a reminder, when the market opens, there's not much data coming out, at least before market open. But then 15 minutes after the market opens, we have the main pieces of data coming out. We have the PMI reports for the S&P Global Composite, not to mention the services data as well. So watch and see some high volatility 15 minutes after market open, and we will see what happens after that. Now, the fear and greed index is still on greed. We're getting very close to the extremes. Other indicators are at the extremes already. So the market is hitting some indicators that suggest we're in a topping process, or at least we're getting closer to that. That does not mean the market's done and technicals still look bullish, but just be a little bit careful as the market continues to pump and pump and pump throughout the end of the year. Okay, so I just want to warn you guys about this. Once we hit extreme greed, this could last like another few weeks, but like I said before, generally when the market reaches these highs, these extremes, that's when you want to be very, very careful. We're getting closer. We're not quite there yet, but we're just getting closer, so just be very careful. Now, there's some news coming up about how Tesla trash won't get picked up as unions are just continuing to be activated in Sweden. We're continuing to see transport workers starting to skip trash days just as a sign of protest. So we need to see how Tesla deals with this. This news is still coming out. Tesla's also going to be getting $153 million in incentives for its planned Mexican Gigafactory. And that's some very, very good news as the new permits have been approved. At least a lot of them were. That's some good news for them. And let's see how this continues to help Tesla. This is great news as Tesla's going to be once again entering different marketplaces, entering different spheres as time goes on. And this is just going to help their improvement, their growth, and things like that. Tesla also unveiled the Optimus Gen 2, its next generation humanoid robot, and it showed more of its functionalities as time went on. It's actually a lot more advanced than the original one that they showed us. And it's going to be capable of doing some more cool things. So you can actually see how it looks a lot better. It's able to use its hands a lot better. It's able to like do yoga, squats, and do things like that. Even like move its hands in a much more efficient manner and just do really cool things like that. So it's very awesome, very, very cool. And I think that this is just another big update that came out, and we're seeing investors getting excited about the AI developments. Now, Wedbush is saying Tesla is going to likely outperform the markets. Price-price ratio is kind of flat. It's actually going up just a little bit. And on top of this, we're going to be looking to see what happens with seasonality. We're going to be watching to see what happens for Friday, as Fridays tend to be green about 49% of the time. December tends to not be that strong for Tesla, but I think we might close the year very strong anyways. And finally, we're going to be watching for the hourly seasonality. I just want to mention that the volume is looking pretty good, 160 million. We're seeing buyers stepping in. When the Fed announced the cuts, we saw a lot of buyers come back to Tesla. They're very excited now, and we're starting to see a big difference in the share price. So what do I see for Tesla? Very, very simple chart. We got a nice bullish break to the upside, and Tesla's going to be testing this resistance, which is where we had this top up here. We broke above this blue trend line of resistance, which is now going to become support, and we have to try to break this resistance over here. If Tesla is bullish, so I think that we might retrace in the morning, back test like 248 to 249, and then we're going to be watching to see if Tesla bounces and do we break to the upside and try to get above 252. If we do so, this could turn bullish and get very close to 260, which happens to align with this orange trend line, which is historical resistance. This is where we have resistance. We could see a push all the way up to 260 over the next couple of trading days. If we manage to kind of like pull back a little bit, just a little 1 to 2 point drop, then a nice bounce on Tesla. And if we break 252, if we're bearish on Tesla, right? Because we saw this like big rejection here, this like big wick that was grabbed. Tesla could come back down if we end up coming down to like 245, back testing either the yellow trend line or this blue trend line right here, and we reject and lose 247. I think Tesla could be well on its way down towards 245 and then eventually 242 all over again. So if we lose 247, watch for a bigger drop. If we manage to bounce off of it and just hold very, very nicely, hold above 250, especially as time goes on, I'm bullish. I think it's going to be pushing up very, very nicely. What do I think is more likely? I think that the green trend line is more probable. Something like this, where Tesla just starts kind of weak throughout the day tomorrow before getting a nice bounce, and we see some shorts get squeezed. I do favor that a bit more looking at the current options chain, as we have over 4+ million puts expiring. So there's a chance they might try to squeeze shorts. We're also dropping it during the after hours. So we might see Tesla retrace just a little bit, then try to bounce even higher and try to push up. The 4-hour time frame is looking a bit more bullish, not to mention the fact that if you look at the daily time frame, we're also looking quite good. We have a bullish crossover on the PPO, and Tesla still looks strong. It favors the bulls a little bit more. SPY is also looking stronger, at least on the daily PPO, but the daily candlestick's looking kind of indecisive. So we will see if SPY tries to continue higher. There's a possibility of a little drop coming, like a small little drop like this. And then we're going to see if SPY can break out of this liquidity zone or not. So the question is, were they grabbing liquidity down here at this 469 area to start pushing SPY up for a breakout, or are we going to come back down? You could draw out this channel forming a flag on SPY. If we're bearish, we could see liquidity just being developed like this before it just continues lower into this like 468 area. If we fail to hold 470, we just kind of chop around there and we just fail, I will turn bearish. I will favor the bears, excuse me. If we end up dropping, we bounce off 470, we end up breaking out of this resistance right here, I favor a move to 474. What do I think is more likely? So we have a bullish case and a bearish case. Be prepared for both. But I favor the bullish case. I think that we might come down a little bit, then try to break out again. I have a feeling that they're trying to grab liquidity down here, and they might try to push the market higher, and they might try to squeeze even more shorts like they've been doing for the last couple of weeks. So we might see SPY go even higher once again. It's just a possibility, and I think there's a good chance of that panning out. For the QQQ, same thing as SPY. We have this nice little channel. I want to mention to you all that when you look here, we have this yellow trend line, and look at how it's been holding this yellow trend line over the last couple of weeks, right? We hit the yellow trend line again and again and again. We're just ping-ponging off this yellow trend line. What does this mean moving forward? I think that what's going to happen is the QQQ could backtest this trend line, backtest 402, then make an attempt to bounce. We might just slowly uptrend tomorrow and try to make our way back up to 405 to 406. And then if we're bearish, you want to lose the trend line and make our way down to 400. If that fails us, I would turn bearish. My gut is telling me. So we have a bearish case and a bullish case. Losing 402, then 400 is bearish. Bouncing off 402 and trying to push up an uptrend alongside the yellow trend line is bullish. What do I think is more likely? The green line here is more likely. We're going to get a slow uptrend, and we might see a mini short squeeze because of all of these put holders. I'm starting to favor that a little bit more, but just to be safe, we'll be watching to see. The daily is not looking the strongest, but the MACD is still looking kind of bullish. So we will see how the QQQ performs. They might try to squeeze shorts and try to hold this thing up a bit. So we will just have to wait and see. Watch just to be safe. For Apple, this thing is looking very indecisive as well, because we have this channel developing. We might see Apple retrace a little bit towards this 197 to 196 zone. If we break out after hitting it, we could be looking for a push for 200. If we fail, we might just downtrend for the next couple of for the next trading day or two and make our way down to like 195. My gut tells me it might drop and pop and try to break out anyways. Let's hope we end up getting a move like that. Finally, for Nvda, I'm going to be looking for some interesting volatility on Nvidia stock. I just want to mention that Nvidia has you can also draw out like a channel on Nvidia just to see how this ends up holding up. So on Nvidia, we can actually draw this out. We can just go from the top here and just draw out this formation right here. And then if Nvidia ends up losing our support, if we end up getting like a big break to the downside, I could see my opinion kind of like shifting. I think that Nvidia is going to reject tomorrow just when we start off, and we'll see if we get a bounce. I'm going to be looking for a retracement towards 480, maybe a little bit lower. Could drop just a little bit, and watch for a bounce. If Nvidia breaks out of this upper trend line, we could be looking for a push back up towards 485 plus, or we could just respect this channel and just continue to downtrend back towards our range, all the way back towards this blue trend line. But one thing that's worth noting is that Nvidia is still on an uptrend because we keep bouncing off this blue trend line. We touched it, we bounced, we touched it, we bounced, we bounced, bounced. It's still bouncing off the blue trend line. So even if we do come down like this, it could still rebound later. So what do I think Nvidia is going to do? However, I think that because there's so many shorts being squeezed, we're going to see a little drop initially, but I have a feeling it's going to attempt to try to break this. We might even try to break out and make our way back up towards 485, right to this resistance, maybe even a little bit higher. Because when you look at the chart, it still is on a nice uptrend, and we have this wick all the way up here at 487. We might be on our way all the way up there to grab some liquidity. Look for a little drop on Nvidia and possibly a bounce. If we break out, look for a bigger push. If we fail, we could downtrend. My guts tells me it's going to break out like this, so watch the green trend line just to be safe. On top of that, on Nvidia, I just want to mention that the daily, look at the daily, guys. If you look at the MACD, it's about to get a bullish cross on the PPO. It could be showing some life for a bounce. The weekly is also showing some life. The weekly looks a little bullish, so I still favor a little bit of upside for Nvidia. Just to be safe, though, we'll be watching just to see. Now I'm just going to go over a couple more tickers out there. Like I was talking about Tesla. What I said yesterday about Tesla was that when you look at the bigger time frames, like the daily charts, daily looks bullish on the MACD, and the weekly is also starting to turn bullish on Tesla, as I mentioned earlier. Weekly is starting to shift, and this looks bullish for next week. Tesla looks bullish, in my opinion. For the IWM or the Russell 2000, we have resistance at 200. Look for a backtest of 197, then a bounce, and we could be pushing back up to 200. Not to mention the fact that on Microsoft, even though we're down 2.25%, the weekly is looking kind of weak. This thing was due for a slight pullback. Let's look at the daily chart. You will notice that on the daily, okay, on the daily, Microsoft is dropping just a little bit more. It could actually backtest 358s to 360 and then bounce at the 50 EMA. So I could see it drop a little bit more. I think 362 is going to be tested. Then we have 360 to 358 and a bounce. So look for a little bit more dropping on Microsoft and a bounce that's likely going to come. On AMD, we're very indecisive. We've been stuck within a channel for the last couple of days. Might retrace towards 135, then bounce, and we could just continue to trade sideways. On top of all of that, let me just mention that the VIX still looking indecisive. I know it's trying to turn a little green, but it doesn't matter that much because it's still stuck between this $12 range. No sign of a true bounce on the weekly. It's still kind of weak. The SQQQ is still kind of flat. It's not really doing much. It's been downtrending still. Just because we have a slight green day today does not mean much. So we'll be watching that. The dollar is looking very weak on the daily and the weekly. The weekly looks like pretty primed for more downside to me. 100.48 looks very, very probable, looking at the 200 EMA on the weekly. So I anticipate some potential downside. On Coinbase on the weekly time frame, watch the 200 EMA at 168. So I could see more upside on Coinbase. Might come down towards 150, then bounce and push up for 168. For Alibaba, watch for 75. I think I have a price target of 75. I've been saying that for quite some time. As long as we don't lose 70, I think there's a good chance of 75 coming, and it's on a slow uptrend. For Google, looking kind of weak. I said if you want to be bullish on Google, we need to break particular resistance, and we failed to do so on the daily time frame. We actually rejected. So I could see Google coming back down, grabbing some liquidity again towards 133, then eventually coming back down to 131. I think that it's not looking that strong. It's still on a slight downtrend, so there could be more downside coming. For Amazon, we're actually kind of stuck right now on Amazon. It's been pretty stuck within a range, basically. We have some support around this 143.5 area and resistance at 150, going back and forth for the last couple of weeks. It's been almost a month, actually, so it's been kind of stuck in this range for the most part. For tomorrow, look at it backtest to 145, then bounce back up, close maybe a little green, but very, very flat around 148. Meta is also kind of stuck. I think that it could backtest 320 8. And if we lose this, watch for 321. I have a feeling it's going to kind of drop and then bounce. I think it's going to trade sideways from here. There's a slight uptrend on the daily. If the daily gets a bullish cross, we could see it attempt to push for 340. But I need to see this thing break 335 first. If we close above that, then there's going to be potential. Let's see if this thing could bounce or not. It might come down, backtest 328, then bounce and start pushing up towards 335. And eventually next week we could see 340. Technically, I think that's very probable, like a drop and bounce. But if we lose 328, I will turn bearish. So watch that level very carefully. All right. So I think it might bounce off there and try to push up higher. But then, if anything, we'll be watching to see how it goes. That's it for this one, guys. Thank you all so much for listening. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Tesla's still looking quite decent as Tesla's showing life and holding up nicely. Let's hope it continues going into tomorrow, and we'll be watching to see which of these cases play out. But if anything, in general, although I can't predict the future all the time perfectly, I will tell you that because of all these puts expiring, be careful and be mindful of a potential short squeeze. If that's the case, we could see some nice volatility. All right, that's it for this one. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day. Remain calm, cool, and collected. And I'll see you guys very, very soon tomorrow morning. All right, thank you and peace out.